Okay, cool. Well, as I said, I'm Michelle. I am the event manager for CSTA, and I think most of you either attended or know someone that attended our conference. That was, gosh, almost a month ago now. It's like crazy. That was on Hopin, and I've gotten lots of questions and inquiries about how Hopin worked out for us. So I'm gonna share my screen for a bit, and we'll just go through. So it might take it a second. There we go. All of this. But so I just, like I said, I had lots of questions that came in. So I wanted to just bring everyone together, because I'm by no means an expert on Hopin or virtual conference. I feel like I know what I'm doing a little bit now that we've done one really successfully. I feel like it'd be helpful to have everyone together who are looking for at a similar thing and asking similar questions. That's always beneficial to me, and I'm happy to continue conversations afterwards. I just thought this would be a great way to kick us off. So since we're in a group, I wanted to start with some just brief introductions, and then these are the other things that we're going to run through. So I'll set some, just talk a little bit about what we'll go through after we do some quick intros. And then I'll plan to share just answers to all the questions that I've received a lot from people about Hopin and our experience. Share some things that I wish were a little different or a little better. And then we have some pretty compelling feedback from our attendees and speakers, so I'll share that. This is a sneak peek. We haven't shared any data with anyone yet, so but I'll still share it with y'all. Some of my lessons learned, and then we can just have a roundtable discussion as a group and answer any questions or help each other out in our virtual conference planning. So if that sounds good, we'll start with some intros, and I'll just call on names so we can just do it quickly, try to keep it 30 seconds or less. So just who you are, what organization you're with, and then if you have one question for today's call. So Joe, you're in the top left-hand corner for me, so I'm gonna have you go first. Oh, here we go.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So my name is Joe Kamak from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm actually the treasurer of the Wisconsin chapter of the CSTA. And I guess my big question, actually several questions, but one big one is wondering if we will be able to use this for our summit coming up in November.
Great.
In the state.
Awesome. Jenna, we'll have you go next.
Awesome. I'm directly south of Joe on the Illinois-Wisconsin border in Illinois, but I work for Next Tech, which is based in Indiana. Some of you were on the call when I was telling Joe where I'm at now. I've been at Next Tech now for 2.5 years. Longtime supporter of CSTA. Actually, Jake Baskin was the first computer science teacher I ever met when I became a computer science teacher, so that's pretty cool. And Next Tech we were essentially blown away by the CSTA's conference. We thought we were going to hate it and begrudgingly just be there, and we are now just trying to, like Joe, figure out if this is something that we can do, have a virtual conference for. We actually want to do it for students for our CS Ed Week. We want to have a student conference with different tracks for students to come to kind of give teachers a break, but also to help promote computer science that they might not be getting at their schools. And so we're kind of looking at it from a student lens, knowing that it's a younger population, and if that's accessible for them.
Awesome.
As well as the lift from our team, because we're a team of 6. So.
Well, we're a team of 10, so we're not that much bigger.
All right, there you
go. Cool. Natalie.
Yeah, hi. I'm with Palm Beach County National Organization for Women, along with Beck. And since the virus has catapulted us into doing everything online, it's going to be the future, absolutely. And so we're learning the future before we're the past.
Great. Beck, I'll have you go next since you're with Natalie.
Thank you. I was a computer science teacher for a number of years and loved it. And that was the best virtual conference I have ever attended. So I was blown away by the software. I have an account. I pulled a number of elements together. Now I need to know the nitty gritty and the back end. Thank you.
Sure. Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Dungan. I work at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. I run an initiative that is going live this month called AI for Teachers. I do a lot of work with AI education for K-12. I'm interested in what other platforms are available for virtual conferences. Unfortunately, I'm maybe the only one here who really doesn't love Hopin. But I don't know any options. I don't know what else is out there or how we might improve it. But it is very disconcerting to be a presenter with a little eyeball up in the corner. So I'm just here to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Jennifer.
Yeah, hi, I work for the New York City Foundation for Computer Science and the CS for All initiative in the New York City Public Schools. As part of that work, we put on a computer science fair for the seniors, mostly seniors, some of the juniors. So we're looking at several platforms to try to do that virtually. Hopin is one of the ones we're looking. Charlotte, I can send you the list of the other ones that we've looked at. There's actually really many platforms out there. So what we really want to be sure of is that it's a very robust experience for the students as well as for the presenters. And we have issues, which I'm sure many of you do as well, about accessibility and privacy that are specific to the student audience. So if there's hopefully that something will come up along those lines as well.
Great. Whitney.
Hi, I'm Whitney Gerner. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton, and my team supports the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Math and Science. And we were at CSTA as an exhibitor, was impressed with it from that side of things. And similar to others on here, are exploring different platforms, hopefully for us to be able to do a virtual conference for our past awardees. So I'm looking at Hopin and a couple other platforms. So Jennifer, I would also love that list. And I'm happy to share notes on platforms I've looked at too.
Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky Grasser. I'm from Lakeland Community College in Northeast Ohio. I am also here as a representative of the Ohio Celebration of Women in Computing. And we are going online in February, and this is my third virtual conference. CSTA was my third virtual conference, which is pretty impressive considering it's only been a couple of months. And so I'm looking like everyone else for what's out there, how things, the sort of logistics behind the scene, and any best practices you may have for getting a conference started and rolling and successfully finished.
Sure. Cool. There's an iPhone. I'm not sure if that's one of your like sound coming through or if that's somebody else. Okay, cool. And then Jason and Emma, I'll have you introduce yourselves as well. You don't have to share a question since you're part of the CSTA team, unless you have one.
Yeah, maybe I'll have a question for Joe. My name is Jason Bohr. I'm the chapter relations manager here at CSTA. Work with Michelle and Emma, and just wanted to pop in and hear what questions were out there, knowing that we're going to do something similar for chapter leaders in the future. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma. I'm the events coordinator at CSTA, and I'm happy to answer any questions and share my experience too.
Emma is the one who intensely and deeply managed all of our speakers, so she might have some good nitty-gritty things for you all. So cool. It seems like this is exactly what I thought it would be, which is awesome. So like I said, just we've gotten lots of questions about our experience with Hopin, so I wanted to pay it forward a little bit. I don't plan to really demo anything on Hopin or show any of those nitty-gritty details, just because like I said, not a huge expert, and since it's such a new platform, I feel like they are changing function all the time. I feel like every time I did a demo with either a partner or a speaker, there was like a new feature available, so it was like kind of fun, but also it made it a little challenging to play for at the same time. And similarly, we're not going to get into details about how CSTA is going to be able to support other organizations or chapters on Hopin. That is something that we're considering and going to be working through. But I'm going to take a very long break starting tomorrow, post-conference and craziness. So we'll work on that when I'm back in the office the week of the 17th, and happy to follow up with anyone that's interested in something like that. But we're not going to talk about that today because I just don't really have any answers for it. And then a couple of other notes, just general next steps would be for you all to reach out to Hopin yourself, and I'm happy to share my sales contact with you all. I will say they are not great at responding, and they're very slow, and it's because they're so new and so small. So that's why I was happy to do that, because I know I was waiting a long time to get responses from them. Or if you have like other specific questions about just like digital events, or if you're looking for like recommendations for like a consultant or someone to help you all out with your virtual events, please just follow up with me directly, and I'm happy to make recommendations or talk about some things. But as I mentioned, I am going to be out of the office tomorrow and in the woods. I live in downtown Chicago, so I'm very excited to not be in the depths of the city locked down for about a week and a half. So just expect a little bit of a delay in response from me if you do follow up. I'll also touch on some of these questions that y'all asked. I was writing them down as you introed, but these are the main questions that I've been asked over the last couple of months since we decided to utilize Hopin. I'm actually going to start with the second one first. I meant to switch that order. We had a little bit of the, for lack of a better term, like luxury to cancel our in-person version and pivot early. So that gave me a little bit of time to do some research. And I would say overall what I learned about digital platforms is none of them are perfect. And something that we decided to do, I probably attended, this is no joke, like, I don't know, like 50 webinars and 50 different demos for different platforms to see. And I would say overall, there was no perfect one, and every platform had a little bit of a different feeling or vibe, and everyone was missing something. So other ones that I really liked were, oh my gosh, I just lost the name. There's one called Airtable or Airmeet, which I really liked, but it's good for like smaller one-track events. It doesn't have great breakout sessions, and it also has no exhibitor pieces. On 24, I have used at a previous job, but they're more webinar focused and less like large conference focused. And I really like On 24 just for webinars. I also have a long list, which I'm happy to send out to those of you that are interested in other platforms with some notes, which I'm happy to share. But we did look at a ton, and at the end of the day, we settled on Hopin because we thought it felt the most like a cohesive event and a cohesive experience that you stepped into. To me, and to our leadership team, a lot of the other platforms sort of felt like a website with disconnected webinars. A lot of things were pre-recorded, or just like you're on a landing page and then going to all these different things. And so it didn't quite feel like a live community building experience. And a lot of you are former CS teachers, or you work with them, and you know that a huge part of what we try to do at CSTA is help facilitate that community, especially for teachers that may be the only one in their district. And we just felt like for us and our goals, that cohesive communal experience on Hopin outweighed some of its like downsides. I will say now that it's August, there are even more virtual platforms that didn't exist when we started. So I think Whitney, you asked me about why we didn't use Cvents, and Cvent just didn't have a platform yet when we started. So now they have it. I'm excited to go to Cvent Connect at the end of this month and see how that looks and feels. But yeah, part of it was just the platforms they're like coming out and they're new. But then at the end of the day, I think that's why we picked it, because of honestly the networking feature. Some of the exhibitor pieces I felt like were better than some of the others because you were able to be interactive. A lot of other places I saw for exhibitors, it was really just like a landing page. And I know Hopin isn't perfect in that space, but we felt like the abilities to be able to get on a video chat and talk and like literally physically chat with our attendees, or virtually, not physically, was a really important piece, as opposed to just like, here's a landing page about this exhibitor. And that networking piece, it's kind of weird when you first think about it, but it really sold me, and I think a lot of our people, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that. I would say things that went well for the event overall were like, it was very smooth. But a lot of that has to do with, we did a lot of prep work and a lot of like pre-training events. I would say we hired a couple of like, I don't even know what to call them, like contract, that's the word, contract people. We hired 3 contract people to explicitly just work with us for the 2 days of the conference to answer people's technical challenges and be available to them. If you use Hopin or honestly any virtual platform, if they don't have built-in chat support for your attendees, I highly recommend this. It made my life so much easier, and there were still certainly attendees that I helped, or if things were a little bit more challenging, it was escalated to me. But knowing that like if somebody was struggling in the chat with either a technical problem or they didn't know where to go, that there were literally 3 people at all times whose eyes are on that chat to be able to respond, was so fast. And we had 2,900 people register and we had 2,600 attend, which is huge for digital events. Attrition is like really low. And so I was really nervous that 3 wouldn't be enough either for like essentially 3,000 people, but it was fine. Other things that were a little bit of a challenge for us. So I think Charlotte mentioned it was not maybe your favorite experience as a presenter. I would say Hopin lacks a lot of the bells and whistles from that presentation side. They're more about like community and their breakout rooms. They call them technically like roundtable discussion rooms. So that there's definitely some features lacking there. And we also did some, like, if you attended, you'll saw in our keynotes, we did some pre-recorded and some live, and then some we switched back and forth. That was a challenge to find a solution that worked really well for us. Their backstage isn't great to let you switch between a live like person presenting in a pre-recorded segment, and then add some of those like fancy chyrons or other little transitional videos in there that just make the experience feel more elevated. And we spent a lot of time doing research and work on that. So that was kind of a challenge for me. Emma, is there anything like from your experience that you felt like went really well or was a challenge? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Overall, I felt like the experience went a lot smoother than I was anticipating, especially having three now. It was really smooth, I thought.
Definitely agree. This maybe goes into my like slide about what I feel like I wish was in Hopin, but their schedule and their agenda is like kind of confusing and it's not super robust. And our solution, I don't think worked out the best. And so next year we'll probably pivot that a little bit if we're online. But it's not the best experience, in my opinion, for attendees if a session description has a limit of 140 characters. Like that's not even as long as a tweet anymore. So I didn't love that. And the way it showed up on the home page switched after we had set everything up. So I would set it up a little bit differently next time, if that's the case. And then the last question is, would we do it again? And I would say yes. Like Em and I have both said, it went really surprisingly well, and was really smooth. And we've gotten some really positive feedback, which I'll share on in a couple of slides. And so I think it was worth it. And I think for our goals of like community building alongside content sharing, it's for me the best platform that I've found that hits our goals. I'm open to other things if other things come up. But I would say, yeah, I would use it again. And just like on a personal note, who knows what's going to happen in the world. I'm supposed to be getting married at the end of September. We'll get married, but we'll see what it looks like. And we're going to do a virtual component. And I'm legitimately considering using Hopin to stream our ceremony and then to allow our like virtual guests to like hang out with each other, as opposed to Zoom, because of some of their own freedom of navigation between different, like who they're talking to and the ability for them to like interact with people like at random in that networking space. So it was a good enough experience that I would potentially like subject all my friends and family to it for a wedding. So I would say personal wish list for Hopin. Hold on, I gotta look at my notes. I wrote some of these things down. So our speakers really wanted breakout rooms. I think that's a big feature for teacher presenters in particular, and Hopin didn't have that. I don't know if that like made or broke the whole experience, but that was something we wish that they could do. And similar on the speaker experience, there's not the best like time counters or notifications to let people know if, hey, your 30-minute session has like 10 minutes left. And so we like impromptu figured out how to have like volunteers step in and make those warnings and do those things. And also there's a thing with Hopin, there's the global event chat. So there's the full event chat, and then there's every area you go into has like a local chat, and you can pin things to the chat so that if they're important, they can stay up at the top. But the only people that are able to pin or remove things are people with event organizer accounts. And to me, that is inefficient and a little like, I wish that was different. I wish like anyone who was a moderator for that session or that booth had the ability to pin the chat, because, you know, in real life, if you're at an event and you want people to see a slide or like click a link to them, you're able to control that. And same thing within your own personal exhibitor booth. So that's some feedback I've given them, and I hope that that's something that would improve in the future. Similarly, a lot of our exhibitors shared that when they were in the booth, there's not, if someone comes into your booth and they don't introduce themselves in the chat or come on screen and introduce themselves, you have no way of knowing if they're in your booth. And so there was a piece of feedback we got from exhibitors that was they wish there was some sort of like bell or notification when people comes in, and I think that makes total sense. That's just a thing that is missing, I would say, a feature from Hopin. I talked a little bit about the stream to the stage. That was challenging, and the pinning things to the chat is a great solution, but I wish instead there was like a way to do push notifications. You know, you can do messages to individuals, but there's no way to like send a broadcast message to everyone within the platform. So for us, we had notifications to be like, the next breakout session is starting in 5 minutes, but for someone to see that, they would need to be reading the event chat. And that's not necessarily always going to be happening. So push notifications with a browser-based platform, I know, can get tricky with permissions and how people have things set up, but that's just a wish list item that I have. And this is also like really nitty gritty on the back end. They changed the way they organize their sessions. And so if we have like, CSTA is very, very content heavy. So we have like 10 or 11 pages of session recordings or like just sessions that are set up, and there's no way to search for them on the back end. So just FYI, if you have a ton of content, you have to like, poor Emma had to like multiple times go through every page, and then you have to do like a control find to be able to search for something. And that is something I wish they would fix and change back. And I've told them that many times. And then anything from you that you wish was different or better? And Jason ran our chapter leader summit. So Jason, I can extend the same question for you.
I think you hit most of the main points. I can't think of anything else, but yeah, I agree with those things.
Yeah, those were all the main points. The session breakout rooms were a big deal, but people found ways to work around that.
Joe, to answer your question, we have an enterprise version because we just needed more registrations than it was able to support, which actually is a good point. When we started, their registration was like super lacking, and we already had people registered for the event, so we kept it in our event system, and which we partially did because of the agenda is just so much more robust, and you could ask more questions, and for us to be able to give people different experiences based off of their membership type too. Hopin didn't have that. They have since released, as of I think last week, an SSO function, and you always could take payment through Hopin, but honestly their fees are really high. It's like 7% per transaction, and that's just high. And especially, you know, if prices are higher, that's a big cut that comes out. So, but now they have a more robust email feature and a more robust like registration feature. One thing I really did not like, but I think it went well, because no, we didn't have anyone that wanted to and then unable to eventually access the platform, is for those of you who attended, you probably remember you got an email that says like you need to click this link to get into the platform, and then in every email every day that link was there again. Overall, I think it went well, but I wish there was just like, I wish it would have been a more like integrated piece. I think that's something we would consider doing differently if we used Hopin again, is potentially just registering directly into Hopin. But as it stood when we started, it didn't have all the things that we needed it to do. And if we did choose to just do registration and Hopin, we would need to figure out a better agenda solution because, like I said, 140 characters does not give you enough info about what you need to know if you want to attend a session or not.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Just a clarification on what you just said. Why did you have that link in every email each day?
Yeah, great question. So because we didn't do registration in Hopin, what we were able to do is then upload people. So we use CVent for registration. And if so any like Eventbrite, whatever you want to use, you can export your list of attendees and then you upload them into Hopin. And then what you can either do, there's two options. One, you can then export all those links. And so then it would have like your name, Jenna Garcia, and then your personal link. And it really is like a personal link attached to your ticket. And all you got to do is then click it and it gets you into the platform and it activates your like ticket, for lack of a better word. And we chose to send those emails through CVent because you can send them through Hopin, but when you send emails from Hopin, they don't allow you to use your own email. So all emails come from team@hopin.to, and it says like CSTA conference on there, but we just did some testing with our speakers and just staff, and like I used my personal, and especially if people use Gmail, it either was going to spam or like hidden in Gmail's promotion or updates tabs, and we were really worried that people weren't going to be able to get access into the platform. So I'd say like for me, that was one of the biggest stressors, and it was easy uploading and getting it out. It was just a matter of like, it's kind of confusing because they're registered already and you don't need to click that link to register. It's just like, that's how you access the platform, and it needs to be individualized because because the risk of us not doing it that way and just giving one generic link would be like, then someone could then just like forward it to anyone and they could still access it, which if your event is free, then that's not really an issue. But does that make sense? Basically, it's like we exported our registration list and then uploaded it into Hopin, and then they had to get an email and like do an action to be able to get in.
Yep, thank you. Sorry, I like pinned it to my browser, so I never clicked it again after the first time. But that's why I was wondering if I was like accidentally circumventing something.
No, okay. You would have done it right, because then you. Yeah. And I think did you just exhibit or did you present as well?
No, I was just an
exhibitor. Okay. Because I think some of our presenters had some confusion with that because we had our presenters get in early. Oh, that's another thing I wish that you didn't have to do, but I understand why. You cannot make somebody a speaker in Hopin until they have registered. So normally, you can just like on any other platform, I guess you could probably say like Emma's a speaker and I just list her name on there, but because they correlate your speaker controls with your account and your registration, like you can't make someone a speaker until after they've registered, which is fine unless people aren't registering. And the same thing for like exhibitors. So if exhibitors were doing the live chat booth, we couldn't give them the permissions to be able to be a moderator for that until they accepted their ticket. So overall, ended up being fine. Most of our speakers got it done 2 weeks before the event started, which is what I think we asked. And then exhibitors, all but maybe like 5 did it by the deadline that we asked for. But I would just say because we had things in 2 different systems, that made it a little bit trickier. And if we do it again, like I said, Hopin's registration system is way more robust now than it used to be, so that might not be an issue. But that was just something that was challenging for me. All right. Let's see, what do I have next? Oh, I skipped way ahead. Okay, so I wanted to share some of our survey results because I think some of these are pretty compelling and helps like understand why we did. So we had 2,600 people attend and 1,300 people take the survey, which is pretty strong. I think industry standard, you see about 20% of attendees taking surveys. So we were really happy with this. And if you have certificates to give people, definitely hide them behind a survey because that helps you get responses. But out of 1,300 people, only 46 of them said that Hopin was not intuitive and easy to use. I think that is really strong. I think you know, everyone has a different experience and different like tech literacy levels. But to me, this was like really happy results for us because we were worried and we're not quite sure how that would look. And especially with the strongest stat there being 63.8% strongly agreed that it was intuitive and easy to use. The next question on here was also important to us. You know, would you attend a future event hosted on Hopin? And that dropped a bit to have only 30 people say no, they wouldn't. They would disagree or strongly disagree. So again, this was really compelling for us with, you know, 97.9% of attendees saying they would attend a future event hosted on Hopin. And then the last, or no, two more. This is more about us and our response. And I talked a little bit about how we had some people intentionally dedicated just to helping and answering questions. I was really happy with this, that 50% of our attendees had no issues at all. And those that did got their issues resolved quickly and easily. I would say that this is very IT crowd, if you've ever watched that, but it really truly is. If you refresh your browser 90% of the time, that would fix the problem, or switch from Chrome to Firefox or Firefox to Chrome. That's what we found. And I think it's our website's still live, so you could probably pull these from the website, but if any of you are hosting an event on Hopin, I'd be happy to share the resources that I put together that we shared with our support staff of like step-by-step ways to help people to troubleshoot. I'm happy to share that. And I think Hopin probably, and honestly, some of it I honestly just pulled from Hopin's user guides, but some of it we detailed the steps out a little bit further to make it, you know, a true like step-by-step experience. So yeah, I just wanted to share this one because I found it compelling that 50% of people had no issues, and the other majority, 46% had their issues resolved quickly. And this is from a different survey. That's why it looks a little different. And I don't know why JotForm rearranges their numbers like this. But this is from our speaker experience survey. And we asked them, how would you overall rate your experience as a presenter within Hopin? Because to me, if our attendees said it was great, but our speakers hated it, we would totally scratch it. But as you can see, majority of our speakers gave it like a 3 out of 4, with the second highest number being a 4 out of 4. So that's really good that our speakers, for the most part, had a really good experience. And nobody rated it a 1. So that also was like a positive thing for me. Lessons learned, I have some notes here. One thing I'll say about virtual conferences is it's a lot more work than I thought it would be, and I think that than most people thought it would be. The main difference that I felt really leading up to the event is like, there's sort of an element of an in-person conference that's like, you can just sort of fly by the seat of your pants. And I say that in like a, not that we're not preparing way, but when you go to an in-person conference, you don't have to like physically set up the room and the speakers and give everyone permissions for each session. Whereas for Hopin, you have to or not Hopin, but any virtual event, you really have to do that work and make sure everything is fully set up. So then you can just like hit a button and let it run. Whereas like in person, there's some things that you can just like take care of on the fly on site. So with that, start planning earlier than you think you need to, because you'll wish you had started earlier. I've mentioned our customer support team a couple of times. So I really think it goes a long way, especially in this new tech world of virtual events. So just I would make that a priority if I was you and I was planning a new event. And along that, over communicate. We tried to really communicate deadlines and things that were deadlines for speakers and exhibitors, and then like technical requirements for attendees. As soon as we knew them, we got them on the site and started including them in our communications. We made our own Hopin 101 video. Hopin has one that's just like short and 2 minutes long that tells you how to use it, but we made our own customized to how we were going to use it, because we did some things a little differently. And you don't have to do it like high production value like we did, but you could just honestly do your own screen record and like share that with people. And I think that was really helpful. It also has like over 1,000 views on YouTube, which I think is really funny. So hopefully other people have found it helpful that weren't from our attendees. I would say we also learned that breaks and passing periods are important. We chose not to do them between breakout sessions. We will be changing that next year. We had a big debate about whether or not to do it and how that would work. And we chose wrong. So I would just say that's an important thing to learn. And honestly, even if it's only like 3 to 5 minutes, that's plenty of time. But just gets like lets people like feel like okay, and then they can move to the next one or get up and get a cup of coffee. I'm the kind of person, if I'm on a virtual event and I need some coffee, I'm gonna turn off my camera and go get it. But I think a lot of people really didn't want to miss the content, which is awesome. So giving them permission to do that, I think, is important. And then something that I really tried to coach our team through as we were pivoting is like, let's not try to just replicate and make it happen online. But we had done some like event goal setting just for our overall event strategy at the end of the year last year. And I made our team just totally like do it again and say, let's just like scrap everything we know. And maybe some of these same goals will come back up. But like, if we were creating a virtual conference from the ground up because we wanted to, not because we had to, how would we design it and what would we want to do? And that resulted in us changing some of our session lengths and not just keeping things exactly the same. And I think that was a really important lesson learned for me. Jason or Emma, any things to note on that?
I would say that it was super important to do all the tutorials that we did, especially for like speaker perspective or attending. That was really helpful. And then the technical rehearsal, that was very helpful as well. That was, I think, very necessary for any bridge event.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I agree. I'll echo all of that.
Cool. Thank you. I think that I skipped the Q&A page. So that's all I had prepared. I think we've got like 20 minutes left. My notes are on my phone. That's why I keep looking at my phone. Yeah, we've got like 20 minutes left. So happy to stop my share and come back up and see everyone's faces again. Happy to just answer other questions. I'll take a look at the chat since I wasn't looking at it. I know a couple of you had asked about like privacy and access. So a couple things that you can't, there's a way, if you attended our event, you saw that there was the ability to do, like you can just message anyone and see their information. You can turn that off. So if you were working with students or if we had an event with students, I would turn it off. You can also restrict by ticket type. So for the networking piece, we intentionally made it so exhibitors and sponsors wouldn't be connecting with other exhibitors and sponsors, which I think was really good. There were probably a couple exceptions to that. We had some exhibitor sponsors that were classified as speakers, so they would have met another sponsor if that happened. But so those are how I would restrict those accesses and really turn off that ability to send private messages. I'm not quite sure how that would then impact your ability to like help people. But maybe organizers are still able to do that. I'm not quite sure because we didn't try to do that, but it does let you not allow that feature to be turned on.
Sorry, just in clarifying that, turning off the private messaging, but keeping on the group messaging?
Yeah, so I think the group messaging would stay. The group chat is always there, but you can turn off, if you remember, there's like a people tab and you can scroll through everyone's names and like click and then send somebody a private message. I think you can turn that off. Okay. And there's also in the networking feature, I think a feature to let you allow them to share contact info. I think you can turn that off. I don't want to say for sure because we didn't look into that, but I feel like I remember it happening. Just got dark out here.
On that networking capability, I guess you could say, can you set it up so that you have two lists of people and the computer or the site or whatever automatically picks one from each list to join, as opposed to I can give an example, a very specific example, but it isn't related to CSTA.
That's okay.
I mean, basically, there's a lady that's running a CIO breakfast that normally is live and stuff like that. And she's going to make it in February whatever. And what she would like to do is set up the networking thing where she has all the CIOs, and these are real CIOs, I mean, not people that just say that, are in one list, and then everybody else in another list. And then the computer would bring together a CIO and a, let's say, a non-CIO type person. Can you set that up?
Yes. So basically it's going to be how you set up your tickets, but it can match based on ticket type. So we had sponsor, exhibitor, speaker, committee, staff, general attendee, and maybe chapter leaders, I don't remember. And basically then in the networking feature, you can go in on the back end and say, then you list, so in your example, you would say CIO, who can they meet with? And you can say other CIOs or like non-CIOs. So you can get rid of CIOs, so they're only getting partnered with other CIOs. Hopin uses the example, at least the one I've heard from them a couple of times, is like if you're doing recruiters and like it's a hiring event, you can have applicants and hiring people, recruiters, only match with each other. So a recruiter is never going to meet another recruiter, and an applicant's never going to meet another applicant. So that's what we did with sponsors. For our tickets, we let everybody meet everyone except for sponsors. We took other sponsors and exhibitors off of their co-meeting list, so that way they wouldn't meet each other.
Michelle, do you
Yes,
know how? Oh, sorry. Do you know about how many people took advantage of the networking?
I don't. I can probably look into that. I think a lot. I think there's like, let me look at our thing on the back end really quick. Oh, I can't minimize because I'm recording the meeting. Emma, can you log in to Hopin and see if it says how many connections were made?
Yeah, I'll look.
It's not going to tell us exactly how many people used it, but there's a button in the networking where if you're like having a good time, you can click connect, and then that's when your contact info is shared, and it'll tell us that. I think that's another thing I wish was a little better. They have a lot of like data in their reports, but it is not organized very well, and it's taking us a lot more time to like comb through it just because it's so much information and it's just not organized very well. But that's a good question, and we'll look at how many connections, and then I can look more in depth as to how many people actually used it. And further note on networking, it doesn't just like if you're not in that area force you into it. So if you're the only one in networking and you click ready to connect, it's just you're going to be in a waiting cycle until someone else goes in there. So it's just going to pair you with another random person. And then once you've been randomly paired with someone, you'll never be randomly paired with them again.
There was 1,000 or connections made.
Nice. It's funny how random things like that happen though, because my favorite story from networking in the conference was Jake Baskin and Jason were connected to each other. Of like 3,000 people, how that happened, I thought it was really funny. But then they just moved along and met other teachers, but we were like, what are the odds? If there were one or two things I wish I did, what were they? And if there were one or two things we wish every conference did. Things I wish we pre-recorded all of our keynotes. I felt like it looks a little bit more polished, like I was saying, because Hopin's piece isn't the like cleanest of things that you can do within there, as opposed to switching back and forth. And so, I didn't mention this earlier, but something we did, all of the keynote presentations themselves were pre-recorded, but we had some live pieces at the beginning. And I don't know if it was, in my opinion, worth the struggle of like figuring all that out for like 5 minutes of live. But we did have all the keynotes on the chat during their recording. And I thought that was really awesome because they were responding to questions or posting extra links. And just like, I felt like it made it way more engaging. So that's one thing I wish I would have done. Another thing I wish I would have done is probably had another technical rehearsal, not with us, but like giving our speakers another opportunity to work in that. And that's just something we didn't plan on doing. And as we did a speaker training, and then the request for that came up, and the building out of sessions is really manual in Hopin, so we just did one because we needed to wait. So I think I wish I would have done another one just to give them some more comfort and ability to like be familiar with it. Things I wish every conference did. I think for us, that, like I was saying earlier, that networking and being able to still have those personal one-to-one connections was really important and made it stand out. So I would, if you're looking for a platform, I would look for one that helps facilitate in that way. I don't know if this is I wish every conference did this, but I think that we sent out some swag boxes, and they were like way more popular than I thought they would be. It was a lot of work, but it was super worth it. And it was hard for us at the time when we planned for it to like budget and figure out how we wanted to do it. And we thought it would be something sponsors would be interested in, and they really weren't. I think now that we've done it, they'll be interested in the future. I wish we would have, instead of setting a cutoff date and ordering our items after, we would have just ordered. I don't know how we would have done it differently though, because we're not like a store, so we don't have an inventory. It's like we are going to order a certain amount. But maybe it's like if you register after this date, you just aren't going to get your box before the conference. But we had them delivered intentionally. And then obviously the pandemic impacted some people. So if your box was late, or people whose was late, we have still some that are like en route, and we're like working on fixing all of it. But I really thought having them arrive, because we started on a Monday, and so we had them arrive the Thursday and Friday before. And that was like, those 2 days were, Emma and I were in like really long technical rehearsals with our keynotes. But it was so fun, and I just wasn't expecting that, to just be on Twitter and like Instagram and searching our hashtags and seeing all of the responses. So I don't know if that super answers that question, but those are things that I really appreciated in our conference. Let's see. So Joe, you had a question in here about difference between breakout session and simultaneous small sessions. Can you talk about what that means a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't, you had a number of time periods where you'd had 4 or 5 things going on, and it was like walking down the hall and being able to pick and choose, and I thought that was neat. But then you referred to the speakers not being able to have breakout sessions.
Got it.
I mean, weren't those breakout sessions?
Yes. So yeah, sorry, language. I should use a different language for that. So I meant like breakout rooms. So if you're in a Zoom meeting, I could right now send you all into small groups and then bring you back at a certain time. Hopin doesn't allow you to do that. And that's something our speakers really wanted. So if that is important, then that's just something to consider. I will say Hopin has a feature where it allows attendees to create their own breakout rooms. So if you can turn it on or off during the conference. We decided not to let that feature be available because a couple of things. One, we have a really competitive call for proposals process, and I don't think that sits well with people that were rejected, or like, especially if they were right on the edge. I also think there's some danger of some things getting really salesy, but also it would just be like chaotic if suddenly like 3,000 people started adding their own breakout rooms to be able to meet with people. So we did our own like DIY version of unconference sessions, which I think worked okay. I would maybe not do them at the very end of the conference. I would do it a little differently in the future, but that's what I mean by breakout rooms. Like, yes, there were breakouts that they could go into, but it's like a breakout within a breakout. We can't do that within Hopin.
So within Hopin, you can't really do a workshop where you're doing small group work back and forthing and stuff. I was in a session with out of 60 with where they used Zoom that way, and it worked marvelously. Like, we had a 3-hour workshop, and we had 2 small group sessions, and they were, they had them set up as timed and stuff, and it worked marvelously. But it sounds like Hopin doesn't allow that to happen, huh?
Correct. You could do it in a workaround way where it's like, if the session was called, I don't know, like machine learning in high school, then you could have like another breakout room that's called like machine learning in high school breakout 1, breakout 2, breakout 3, but it's not like you can't then assign people and send them and bring them back. They would have to navigate on their own, which I think you would lose some people that way, but there's definitely some workarounds. But yeah, it's not a strength of theirs. Feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I'll scroll through and answer questions in the chat, and then I'll look at the questions we brought up at the beginning too. Let's see. We're not gonna. I don't want to look at it on the back end just because we have some like personal identifying information in there that I can't share. But we can send a link out. I'll send the slides if people are interested in that. But Hopin has like a really robust user manual, and I'm happy to share the link in some of those resources that we put together on our own. I would say it's pretty intuitive on the back end as well. Let me look at the questions you all said we wanted to cover at the beginning. Where did I write those? Here they are. Talked about the privacy for students, and just, I guess, best practices, I would say, is the only thing we haven't covered. So I would say, I think these have come up a little bit throughout our conversation this afternoon, but I would say definitely practice and give your speakers times to practice. And then just give yourself more time than you think and have everything set up at least a week in advance, because changes will come and you'll want to be able to focus on like communication and last minute details as opposed to getting speakers assigned to their correct sessions the weeks before. So that's what I would say for me, some of those best practices are.
I have a question just for the general group, because Jennifer, thank you for sharing that document. It's saving us, hours and hours and hours of work. So thank you also, Michelle. Are there any other platforms that people really love that like it's Hopin and this, or Hopin and like these two other things? Charlotte, I know you said from a presenter perspective, you didn't love it. If there's another one, I don't know, we've attended like webinar only conferences and like they were fine. We like really enjoyed the interaction of Hopin. And so like maybe some other platforms that people have experienced that they loved or hated for different reasons.
Right. I can tell you that we are thinking very seriously about using vFair for the computer science fair. One of the reasons is that it has kind of a virtual lobby. So we decided to have students create avatars. Was not a good idea because it would take them too much time and we decided not to do the avatars. But it still seems like you're in a virtual world. Like there's people that are moving around in it and you can tailor what they're wearing. They can look like they're teenagers. The background could be New York City where we are. And the other thing about vFairs is they have these gamifications built in. So you can do a scavenger hunt, you can do a raffle, which we did at the actual fair. We did a raffle. So we thought that that might be a little attractive also to the students. On all those questions about privacy, when we've been having discussions with these platforms, we're turning off networking altogether. So like the lounge, we're not even going to have for the students because of these privacy issues. And we also have focused a lot on the exhibitor experience. I know that, Michelle, you were saying you had the exhibitors do video to video. We're concerned that some of our students, our program focuses on the most under-resourced. So a lot of them are going to have access issues. So even though it's fully optimized for mobile, we're not sure that a video to video is going to work for our students. So we want something that seems to be engaging without having to do the video. And your point about not knowing if someone is there unless they engage in the chat, I mean, that's a good point. That's something we're going to have to overcome. So we're leaning a little bit more towards vFair. They seem similar in a lot of ways, except for this seems like more of a virtual world rather than kind of looking, looks more maybe like a familiar platform like YouTube might look like. But also they've really done the gamification. I think Hopin, you can participate and get a certificate and be eligible for like things. But this is really like you go to different places and you can have this little like robot pop up and it becomes part of your briefcase. So again, we're trying to think we're very focused on the age of the students that we're working with.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. We looked at vFairs and it was one of our top 3 towards the end. And for us, it is lacking that video connection. And so for us working with adults, that's why we were like, we're not going to use it. But I think if we were working with students, it would be a different consideration. And that's a really good point. We also, it does kind of feel like you're in like The Sims almost. You like walk into a fake conference center and then there's like little people and you can like customize it. So it's like like you could have a Jennifer that's like the help desk, and you just like click on her picture, her little avatar standing there, and you can click on her and you can play a video or you can chat her, and it's cool.
Yeah, but we're like, we can't have the students doing avatars because then they're going to spend the whole fair like changing how they look, right? And so, I mean, it sounds frivolous, but you all know that it's not. So we'll have them, teachers, like create whatever their username is and everything. And also the thing about both platforms, privacy is a huge issue. So we want to protect the students, and we also want to protect them from each other, worst possible scenarios we're thinking of. So, the teachers are going to play a key role in registering the students. And even though who knows what's happening in New York right now, it was going to be a hybrid yesterday, live and remote, but that might be changing. But in any case, we want to be ready if it's 100% virtual or if it's this hybrid.
Question about V-Fairs. Do you know if they have the similar, like, what did you call it, ticket type that Hopin has, where like the teachers are allowed to have the avatars and the students are, or?
In terms of it's not avatar based. So we have a question for them is, what do you do with the chaperones? In terms of the ticket levels, I think that was based on the registration. It's free to everybody for us. So you've got the booth exhibitors who will also be, the booth and sponsors will all have booths in our model. And then a lot of them will be doing what they call the Simul Live, which is what Michelle, you were talking about. It's kind of the pre-recorded, and then there's a live chat. So there's two kinds of registrants: students, teachers, and booths and sponsors. So it doesn't really apply to us.
Okay.
Yeah. For VFair. I haven't used it to be, I mean, we're still deliberating between Hopin and VFair. Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle, what was the third one in your top 3?
On24.
Oh, okay.
And they're like really strong with like individual webinars, and they're like really robust, and like I used On24 at a different association and like loved it. But what I didn't like about On24, and I liked VFairs and Hopin had the whole like you're entering an event and this is your whole like cohesive experience. On24, they built their own, what they're calling an engagement hub, which is funny because that's what Steven's calling theirs. But they felt the most disconnected to me. Even if there were live webinars, it really was just like clicking into different things, and there was never a possibility, because their capacity caps at 1,000 and we knew we'd be larger than that, so there wasn't even a way for us to do like everyone live watching a welcome keynote. Like it would have like probably quadrupled the cost of it for us to be able to add that capacity on there. I will say, I don't know if you've demoed with Cvent their engagement hub yet. We did a probably premature demo with them. They're excited and they want us to use it next year because sure. I felt like it was similar to the On24 experience of webinars within like a website, but the difference was it was a little bit better because instead of me having to click to go into the webinar, it was embedded in the website. And I think they have a Zoom integration, and I think that's what it is. What I felt like was missing on the Cvent piece by Jason was that universal chat. And I felt like that was a really important piece for our conference. But if that's not an important piece for things that you need to do, then yeah. So see what Cvent looks like next summer by the time that we have to make a decision about what we would like to do, again, if we're virtual.
Yeah. Just for everyone, one of the other platforms that we've looked at is EventMobi, which I've used extensively for their app before, which was good. And so far it seems promising, but we need to play with it a little bit more too. And I think for us, just cost-wise, would come in below what like the enterprise level of Hopin is sounding like it is now.
Yeah, I don't know how they are doing it now, but our package is custom. So I know if you see like the enterprise pricing on the website, it's less than that. So it's possible that you can negotiate with them. But like I said, they're kind of sometimes hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I had reached out to them before this and finally heard back, and they were like, so basically you can do the enterprise for 18,000 or this other one for like the monthly, whatever. And I'm like,
I'm sure they changed.
It'd be great if there was something in between.
Yeah, we're in the middle somewhere there. Yeah, I'm sure they've just changed it with their demand.
Yeah.
So more from a user perspective, I was on a conference a couple weeks ago where the administration work was done using a Moodle setup, and then each session or breakout session had a link either to Discord or Zoom or a couple other platforms. And that seemed to work. The conference went okay, although it did feel like you were doing a lot of clicking. So that's, if you have access to an LMS like that, that might help some of the student issues.
Yeah, and I would say if we had a smaller conference, that idea of like using, like, one thing we considered was using the mobile app that CVent has, because you can access a browser version of it, and just linking out to a bunch of different Zooms. But because we have just so much content, it was the human error of linking to the wrong Zoom for the wrong session. Like, we just felt, and then like the interactive feature. But I would consider something like that for a smaller conference where you don't have like 200 breakout sessions.
So a question on the exhibitor capability is how many presenters can you have, for an exhibitor?
Sure.
And I'll tell you why I'm asking this, but go ahead.
Yeah, so they have number of people on the screen at a time is limited to 10. That includes like if you're screen sharing, and the way Hopin does a screen share, which I don't like either. I wish when you shared your screen it went big, but it people can control that themselves and make it big, but it just shows up as another person in the corner. But the number of people that have those, what they call moderator privileges, I don't think there's a limit, because like one of our large sponsors had, like one of our top tier sponsors had like 20 people in attendance, and we just gave them all moderator privileges because, just that way they can all operate the booth if something happened, and there was no restriction or issue with that.
Okay. Yeah, at ISTE, we're thinking of virtualizing the playground thing that we usually do. And we have maybe 25 booths in areas, in a large area. And what we're trying to get, and what we've been more and more successful with, is getting, instead of, we don't want vendors to be selling stuff there because it's a freebie thing. But what we'd like to have is teachers and students presenting or talking about their projects and stuff like that. So that would mean that we might have a teacher and a couple of his or her students talking about using the God knows what robots or something like that. And but they might be each in their own home and stuff like that. So you'd have 3 or 4 screens, or videos, and then the people that will be participating and walking by, so to speak, walking by.
Yeah.
So, and I think that would work.
And we liked that, whereas like a booth and even a session, someone could join the presenters on screen and like ask the question like we're doing here, as opposed to just having to type it in the chat. Like that was a strike against like on 24, because it's just the webinar. You just enter thing in the chat, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just for how we wanted our conference experience to be. That's something it couldn't do. We have poster presentations, and we tried to figure out the best way to adapt those, and we had people do them 2 different ways. So some people just did them strictly as a pre-recorded video, and they did a like 5-minute presentation of their poster, and we set it up as a booth, and you can go into the booth and watch that presentation at any time. Others did it live, and we just advertised what times those particular presentations were live in those booths. I feel like the pre-recorded ones worked a little better for booth time, but that I'll have to like dive into some more analysis as to our presenters and see what they think, and the attendees, because I wasn't attending, I was just setting it up. Great.
Thanks.
Well, any other things I can help with? Yeah, like, of course, and thanks to all of you for joining and sharing your thoughts and your own research. Happy to have follow-up questions. And like I said, I know some people are looking potentially for some consultants. I have some friends in the industry, happy to make recommendations, or depending on time of year, I can potentially do some help like on the side. But yeah, I will be out of the office tomorrow through the like 14th, but after that, happy to get in touch or answer more questions for you all. And I'll put in the chat really quick our salesperson's name. Her name's Erin. and this is her email address. It's erin@hopin.to. I think she's like in charge of some salespeople too, so hopefully that will help. But I would recommend, if you haven't attended an event on Hopin, or you want to just look at it through a different lens, the way they do their sales webinars is they like you attend like a 2-hour event on Hopin. And for me, that was like really cool, because instead of someone just like walking through the back end, you can get on the event and like attend it, and you click through all the areas, and then they have different customer service people in different areas to answer your questions. And I would assume that's on their website. I don't remember how I attended one in the first place, but I made all of our staff and committee attend it one too before we committed to the platform, because I was like, I want you all to see and experience this and tell me what your concerns are before we decide this is what we're going to do. And then we can talk through how to work with the concerns, or if they're bad enough, we'll find something else. So I would recommend doing that. But again, I'm happy to answer more questions or help. I'll just be gone for the next week and a half. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for your time, and it's nice to meet all of you, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.